Venezuelans are on edge as the government cracks down on dissent. Román Camacho is a reporter in Caracas, and he joins us now live. What is the mood like in Caracas today?
Well, thank you for the invitation to your program. For now, everybody are on their houses. The city's calm. Nobody is celebrating. Nobody is saying anything in the streets. A lot of people are with fear. And I think mostly respect for about what happened in the January 3rd with the president Nicolás Maduro, and people don't want to go to the streets because they can face jail. So I think most of them are afraid, but the streets are calm right now.
And in terms of basic services, going to a grocery store to get food, going to a bank machine to get money, going to a hospital if you need help, are all those things working routinely?
Yeah, all of the emergency services, all the public services, all the grocery services are working. You can go out. The first 2 days, all the people got scared. They thought there were going to be like a second wave of attacks, but nothing happened. And now everything is normal. You can go to a grocery store, you can buy food, you can find food, and everybody is on their daily routine.
I don't know how careful you have to be in answering this next question, but we heard that the government had cracked down on journalists in the first day or so after the United States removed Maduro. What is it like now?
Well, we have to be very, very careful about what we say because we have like a new law. We have a state of commotion for everything that's happening. So the security forces can, if you send a message about, I don't know, celebrating or something that the police can read and think that you're in favor of the United States or what happened, they're going to take you to jail. So we have to be very careful about what we say and what we do. I just got out yesterday to start working because I didn't want to go out because everything was like very difficult for journalists in Venezuela. Let's see in the upcoming weeks if everything changes or if we start having some freedom of speech or freedom of the press.
But to this point, it has not changed.
It has not changed. Yesterday, 14 journalists, 14 colleagues of mine were in prison. They were released after 3 hours. Some journalists are in Colombia trying to get into the country, but they can't. And I have other journalists that try to enter through the airport, and right now they're detained, and we don't know what's going to happen to them.
Yeah. On a personal level, how are you doing?
Well, I'm scared. I'm just waiting to see how everything goes. Let's see if everything gets better. I don't know what's going to happen, but mostly scared.
You know, I've been talking to Canadians with ties to Venezuela, and you know, different people have different opinions, obviously, right? But one message I hear from a lot of people is they are so happy that Maduro is gone, but they are very uncomfortable with the idea of U.S. intervention. What would you like Canadian viewers to keep in mind at this time?
Well, that's true. A lot of people are happy about what happened, but nobody wants to be under U.S., law and order, or nobody wants to be ruled by the United States. So it's very difficult to describe or to talk about, but all the Venezuelans want is democracy, opportunity, and a future in their country. But with this government right now, the revolutionary government, Venezuelans doesn't have a future in Venezuela, so we just want a change and want to see a better future for us.
I know it's not easy to be talking about these things, Román, and we so appreciate you. We so appreciate you speaking with us, and I hope we can connect with you again in the future. Román Camacho is a Venezuelan reporter, and he is in Caracas this evening. Thank you. Freddy Guevara was a congressman in Venezuela, a member of the opposition leader Maria Machado's coalition. He was arrested twice, one time in 2017, a second time in 2021. He served 3 years in prison, and he's now living in exile in New York and is a democracy visiting fellow at Harvard. And he joins us this evening from New York. So we just heard a reporter from Venezuela. What goes through your mind when you hear about the situation back there?
Well, it seems sadly pretty normal to me. We live like that in the last 15 years or more. And because basically you don't have any freedom, no? And that's the way Venezuelans are living. But also at the same time, I'm sure that they are there in the field feeling hope because the winds of change are arriving.
Why do you think the winds of change are arriving?
First, the removal of Maduro is not just the removal of a piece and then the system will prevail. Of course, the job is far from being done, but this piece that was removed was a key piece in all of this puzzle. Whether the Trump administration will force the rest of the Maduro leftovers to comply with their obligations, or if the Maduro leftover regime complies with the Maduro's demands, in both cases, even if they comply or if they don't, we will achieve a transition. I will explain why. If they comply, that's self-explanatory. But in the second scenario, in which they don't, I'm sure that the Americans will also take a second chance. And of course, they will also, like the internal coalition, they will also face the internal consequences of more division. So I am sure I can develop more, but like I'm absolutely sure that this is great news for Venezuela, even though, of course, we wanted a different outcome, but the Maduro regime built for themselves this solution, this outcome.
But the interim president, the person in control now, is a Maduro loyalist. So why do you think things would change under her?
The dictatorship is sustained with one key tool, which is repression. This repression is fueled by the corruption and the international support. If Delcy Rodriguez complies with Trump's request, which means that they will give the oil control to the Americans and they will withdraw the control of the oil to Iranian, Russian, Chinese, and Cubans, this means they will lose the money that feeds the repression apparatus. So whether they comply or not or don't, I'm sure that the regime is cracked and it's a matter of time that will lead us to a democratic transition.
And speaking of oil, the U.S. seizing a Venezuelan oil tanker today. What do you see as the U.S. endgame in all of this?
I think they've been pretty clear with this. I think they're trying to build they have energy, economic interests, and also national security interests. And, we've been very clear with this too. We are absolutely better dealing with Americans than dealing with the Chinese, Russian, Cubans, and Iranians. In a perfect world, this wouldn't be the case. In a perfect world, the United Nations would have helped us. The Organization of American States would have helped us. Even the progressive governments of Colombia, Brazil, or Mexico would have helped us. But none of that happened. None of that happened. Everyone left us by our own. The Americans were the ones that took the actions that were required to help us free Venezuela. And this is the situation that we have now. So we are in a, let's say, reform and a reformist path to achieve our freedom and restore our sovereignty, popularly and territorially.
You sound optimistic about at least the long-term future, but to have a president taken out by one country, having an ally of his installed as the interim president, having the current government still asserting a lot of the controls over journalists that existed before, it feels to me like Venezuela could be in for a time of disorder and uncertainty. Do you worry at all?
Of course, we are not naive, but you have to understand that we've been living with this under 25 years. So if there's someone who is optimistic, it's the Venezuelans, right? And not in a naive way, because we understand the harsh circumstances we are embedded in. However, if you see the actual situation, I truly believe that the probabilities are in our favor. The odds are in our favor. I explained that before, but I will say it again, that not only because the American pressure can make them disappear, but also because the internal friction that this will create within the regime will soon, open a path to a more democratic transition. So, of course, there's a road full of challenges, but we are committed to make this go in the right way and to get, the end goal of this is to have an elected Venezuelan government by Venezuelans, run by Venezuelans, that can start running the country and not depending on foreign powers.
Freddy Guevara was a Venezuelan congressman now living in exile in New York. Thanks for speaking with us.
Thank you very much.